Italy is becoming one of the top destinations for wealthy investors and individuals seeking to live the dream. But is it worth investing in Italian real estate? I am Jacopo, founder of Valente Italian Properties, and on this channel I explain Italian real estate market in plain English. In this video you will discover pros and cons about Italian real estate investment to decide if it's really worth it. I will do my best to don't be biased, even though I'm Italian, and to speak really frankly and transparently to you about pros, cons, and risks about investing in Italy. But the first area we need to dive in is the legal aspect of buying a property in Italy. So when you buy a property anywhere in the world, you have two types of risks regarding the legal part. The first one is that you pay the price to acquire the property, but later somebody question your ownership. And the second is that you buy a property that have some issue, speaking about mortgages or liabilities. How realistic is this risk in Italy? Honestly, if you are buying a property as a private person, the risk is really low. Property rights in Italy are really well protected, even by the constitution. And by the law, every real estate transaction has to be in written form in front of the notary. Because the notary wants to be sure that at the day of the deed, the property is legally free from any problem. In this way, you are protected by last-minute claims that can reach out the property just before you pay the price. On top of that, once the deed is done, it has to be registered in the land registry. This registry is public. This means that everybody can look up who is the owner of a property. Thanks to this system, disputes about the ownership are really rare in Italy. So when you buy as a physical person, the possibility to have legal problems, it's really low. But it's different if you are buying a property through a company. This is something that real estate investors sometimes do because it's really convenient from a fiscal point of view. You pay less taxes mainly. It's more dangerous because when you buy a company, you also become the owner of the liabilities that the company has, even if it wasn't you that make that liabilities. To avoid that, if you are considering to buy a property through a company structure, you absolutely need a due diligence. This means hiring a qualified tax advisor that will check the balance sheets. It will give you an appraisal on the company that tell you if you have any risk in buying that company. You also want that this fiscal consultant take responsibility for what he writes in the report. I will give to the legal area in Italy 8 out of 10 because it's not perfect, but you have ways to protect yourself. The second key area that we will discuss is taxes. And I know that everybody say taxes in Italy are crazy, and I agree on the fact that taxes in Italy is quite complicated, but if you understand how it works, it can be really cheap from a fiscal point of view to own a property in Italy. This is because Italian governments were historically really favorable to the fact of buying property from the population. That's why you will find that Italian taxes on real estate are quite cheap. Let's start from the taxes you pay when you buy the property. In Italy, the taxes are not calculated on the price that you are paying to buy the property, but on the cadastral value. The cadastral value, it's let's say a fake value just for tax purposes, and it's usually really lower compared to the real market value of the property. So if you're buying a property, normally you pay 9% on the cadastral value, but you can ask for the first home tax release. So to apply for this special tax regime, you need to move your residency to Italy within 18 months from the deed. And if you do that, you just pay 2% on the cadastral value. Then when you are an owner, you will be paying the property tax probably. In Italy, we call it IMU, and it's a tax that you pay to the municipality. It is roughly around 1% still of the cadastral value, not the market value of the property. But if you are living in Italy and you are living in that specific property, you have full exemption from the IMU, from the property tax. Also, if you own a property property of historic, artistic or cultural interest, you will have important reduction on the property tax. Then if you're going to rent the property, you will probably pay taxes on the income that you produce with the property. And normally the taxes is 21%, so it's a flat tax on the rental income, but you can lower it down to 10% if you respect specific criteria. On top of that, you can deduct interest on the mortgage, you have deduction on the work that you do on the property, and finally, if you choose to live in Italy, you can apply for special flat tax regime or expat scheme to reduce your taxes. So I will give a score of 8.5 out of 10. But now let's go into something that I really think it's a pain point for Italian real estate investment: the technical and compliance issues. According to a study by the Centro Studi del Consiglio Nazionale degli Ingegneri, based on 5,000 interviews on engineers, nearly 80% of the properties in Italy are affected by non-conformity issues. You are almost sure that if you are buying a property in Italy, it will have some conformity problem. Each municipality can decide different rules. So if you are buying in Milano or Rome or even in the same region, you can have significantly different construction rules. And then the paper archives and missing documents, it's a problem because digitalization of the paper archives that are really ancient in Italy just started few years ago, and most of the archives are still physical paper in a place. And as you know, paper is hard to retrieve, can be damaged or lost. So how do you protect yourself in this situation? What you need is a compliance report made by a professional surveyor that assure you that you're buying a property without any conformity problem. Or if the property has some non-conformity, you can ask to the seller to fix it. That's why at Valente Italian Properties we have a dedicated in-house technical department that help our clients to check before buying a property. So if you want to be sure that the property you are buying has full conformity for cadastro and construction law, you can write at project@valenteit.com. So speaking about the score, in this case I have to go for a 4 out of 10 because it's fixable, but it's still really complicated. Another problematic aspect of buying a property in Italy is bureaucracy and time. And this is especially true if you are from Anglo-Saxon countries like US or UK, where everything is so fast. Because in Italy, buying a real estate property takes a lot of time. The process have two main steps. The first one is the preliminary contract, where the buyer commits to buy the property at certain condition and the seller commits to sell the property at that conditions. The second and final part is the final deed that you will do in front of the notary. Now, between these two steps, you usually have more or less 3 months of waiting. On top of that, if you need the mortgage, also the bank add to this situation that needs to confirm that they will give you the money. But to get to the preliminary contract, you also need to find the property and to close a deal. This is additional time that you need to add before getting to the preliminary contract. That's why in Valente Italian Properties we develop a service which we called Real Estate Advisory to help mainly foreign buyers buying a property in Italy safely and as smoothly as possible. The international buyer will have a buyer agent that speaks in English, that know the issues that they have to address for international buyers, and will help you through the whole process. If you want somebody that work on your side and help you out on all these steps, check the description, you can contact us and one of our consultants will reach out to you. Speaking about bureaucracy, also it's interesting to know who can buy in Italy. The Canadians in Italy cannot buy a property in municipalities that have a population above 10,000 people. Then there is also restriction about Switzerland, because there they have a law where you cannot buy a property in Italy if you don't fit some criteria, and so we have the same in Italy for who is coming from Switzerland. I want to specify that these limitations are coming from not the Italian law but the country that has the limitations actually. I will give to bureaucracy and time 6 out of 10 as a score because it's slow, but you have no restriction and everybody from every country can actually buy a property in Italy. The fifth area that we will analyze is financing and mortgages. Here the issue is if you have income coming from Italy or not. Because even if you are a foreign citizen, but your income is coming from Italy, you will have the same conditions of an Italian citizen. If your income is coming from another country, it doesn't matter if you are Italian or not, for you taking a loan in Italy will be a bit more difficult. Not every bank in Italy is ready to give money to somebody that is not making money in Italy. But still you have possibilities, because we work with banks and mortgage brokers that give credit to foreign buyers with foreign income. And you should consider an Italian mortgage, because speaking about interest rates, it's really lower compared to what you can find in US, for example. There are no nationality limitation for the mortgage in Italy, but if you are from a country that is in the blacklist or the gray list, you need to expect more scrutiny about anti-money laundering system. I will give to the financing environment and mortgages a 7 out of 10 because it's open to everybody. Again, you can have really cheap interests, but speaking about loan to value, you cannot reach the 80% or 100% loan to value. Speaking about investments, it's really important to understand also the liquidity of the market where you're investing. With liquidity, I mean how you can easily resell the asset that you are buying. And this can dramatically vary from city to city. But speaking on average, a property remains on the market in Italy from 5 to 6 months before it gets sold. Of course, in big cities, the liquidity is much higher and you can hope to resell the property if you want, even before the 5 or 6 months of the national average. Instead, if you are outside of the big cities, the liquidity is lower. This means that you will maybe need to wait more than the average 6 months. If you have a property and you position the property on the market at the right price, you can sell even in market with less liquidity. Another data that can be interesting for you if you want to buy a property in Italy is the negotiation percentage that you get on average from the asking price. This is between 7 and 8%. A lot of clients from United States, they ask me if we have MLS, if we use it. Actually, in Italy, there are MLS. They are from franchise network or private companies, but the reality is that real estate agencies don't usually use them. I will give to the market liquidity a 6.5 out of 10, considering also that if you are buying in big cities, you get more liquidity, but it's harder to make great deals. Instead, if you go out of the big city, you can find really good deals, really cheap prices, but you need to consider that you have less liquidity. And finally, we get to the return on investment. If you look on the internet, you can easily find articles that speak about a return on investment between 8 and 9%, but if we are speaking in reality, these data are not correct. Because if you consider real prices and real income from the renting, you are more or less between 6 and 7%. This is because these studies consider the asking price and the asking rental on the portals. We already know, as we discovered, that this is not something that is true, because on the price you get discount. Everybody can put a real estate property on the portals without any check on the price. Also, these data don't consider that you will probably have some vacation time between one tenant and the other, or maybe you will have a tenant that will not pay, that it's possible. All this will reduce your return on investment. But you have ways to optimize your return on investment. Firstly, you need to know that if you are buying in big cities, as we said before, you have more liquidity, but it's more difficult to have great deals. So the return on investment is higher out of the city, in peripheral parts of the city or countryside, but it's more risky. You can try to do short-term rentals, which is not that gold mine that it was before, but still from a return on investment point of view has a fair advantage on long term. But if you want to have the highest return on investment rate, maybe you can buy bigger properties that need renovation or have some problems that you can fix and then put on the rental markets. I will give to the return on investment 7 out of 10. I think Italy real estate investment is on the average of developed country. But now I want to know, what do you think about investing in Italy and investing in the Italian real estate market? Leave a comment, I will read it, and see you in the next video.